Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this talk about the creation of Blueberry Garden, a game I have created. This is very much a design talk about the design process of the game. So any questions about programming and art, we can wait with until after my presentation. Okay. My name is Erik Svedäng, and I'm from Sweden. I'm 22 years old and work as a game design teacher at the University of Skövde. This is my website if you want to check out other things I've done. Okay, but this talk is about Blueberry Garden. How many here have played the game? Okay, then I absolutely need to explain what this game is about. And every time I get the question, I answer differently, so I have a few alternatives here for ways to describe the game. Okay, one way to describe it could be a game I made while I went to the university. I made it as part of my final thesis to experiment with interactive storytelling. So that was how I spent my last semester at the uni. And I tried to come up with ways to tell a story without using anything non-interactive. So I didn't want to use cutscenes or dialogue or anything like that. I just wanted everything to be gameplay. Okay. Another way to describe the game is to say that it's an attempt to create an ecosystem and to simulate that in a computer. This made the game run very slowly because I actually simulate everything in a kind of stupid way with physics and plants and creatures and the seeds from plants and fruits and everything. And the whole world is simulated at the same time, which every programmer in here understands is a very bad way of doing things. But that's how I did it. And it actually works, kind of. It's an ecosystem that evolves and can crash if certain things happens, and well, it has the features of an ecosystem. Another way to describe the game is that it's a very short game. For a normal player, it usually takes about an hour to beat. Could be even faster. Some people never beat the game. So it varies, but about an hour on average. A final way to describe it would be that it's a platformer where you can fly, which isn't that original, but that's how it is. Okay. Well, a fifth way to describe the game is to actually play it, so I will try to do that for a little while, just so that you can see how it looks like. Okay, so I'll press start. Okay. So here you are, the main character, and you get some instructions on the controls here in the lower right screen. And you can walk around. Here are some stones that you can pick up. That sound was from a creature that lives over here. Yeah. We can walk over to the other side here. Some more stones. And one thing you can do in the game is that you can fly. So you can fly away like this. And down here are some blueberries. There are quite a lot of blueberries in the game, as you might have guessed. Okay. So I can pick them up and eat them when I turn blue. And they give me a secret superpower that I won't explain what it is, but you might have guessed what it did. Whatever. Now something strange happened. I will not explain everything too much, but anyway, you can fly around here and strange things happen. Here's some cheese. Yeah, now I can fly out here. Whoa. There's a bird. And someone left a stone here. Okay, that's it for now. So that's a little about how the game works. Let's move on. Okay, what's the deal with the game? It's a short game about a man with a beak who moves around in some strange world. Well, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer this question, but I will try. It managed to win 2 competitions. The first one was Swedish Game Awards, which is a competition for students in Sweden. And it also won the grand prize at Independent Games Festival, which was a very pleasant surprise. And it also got picked up by Steam and is selling there. So if you want to play the game, you can buy it from there. A lot of people actually seem to enjoy it very much, which made me very happy. I got some really strange responses about the games. I will show you some quotes from my website. Okay, I will read this. Beautiful, something very wonderful about it, in fact. It reminds me something I have long forgotten in childhood, is the feeling. This dude can't write, but whatever. My autistic son loves it. It just begs to explore his own creativity and stimulates the brain process of imagination. Very nice. The game is capable of pulling you back to that first time you had a controller in your hands, staring in wonder at everything occurring on the screen. Terrific game, so good that this was maybe the first time I was hurt when I realized I finished it. Hurt, as in the first time you were rejected by a girl you really liked as a kid. So you capture a very interesting emotion from me that people usually don't see from video games. Okay. Anyway, obviously, some people didn't like the game at all. In fact, a lot of people thought that it kind of sucked and didn't get it at all. Here's a quote from a review. It retails on the Steam digital download service for a mere $4.99. What's there to lose? Well, you could lose $4.99. That could go toward purchasing a better game for starters. This teensy 2D puzzle platformer has a mild minimalistic appeal, but isn't it clever or engaging? But it isn't clever or engaging on any level, and it's buggy to boot. There isn't much behind Blueberry Garden's curtain, and there isn't enough charm to wield that simplicity. Okay. So maybe there is something going on here. Some people, I don't know who they are, like the game, and then there is these, like, I would probably call them normal gamers that actually don't get the game at all. And I thought a bit about this and tried to come up with, like, what could this be all about? And what I came to understand, realization, was that Blueberry Garden is crammed with really bad design choices. And bad is a tricky word. It doesn't really mean anything if you don't explain it, so I will try to do that. And bad when it comes to game design, at least to me, those words are very much about what's bad when it comes to game design. Unfair, punishing, not clear, unresponsive, lack of feedback, shallow, little replay value. It's hard to argue with that. A game that is all these things is bad. As opposed to fair, rewarding, clear, responsive, plenty of feedback, deep, lots of replay value. What game would you rather play? Okay. The thing is, of course, that I would say that my game is much more of this than it is of this. Still, people seem to enjoy it in some way. Okay, important thing to understand. I made all these bad design choices, and I knew that I was making them. And still, I made them. And this is something very dangerous to do, because people will be angry, and they won't like those choices. It's very dangerous. But they can still be worthwhile to do, and I will try to explain why. So I will go through a couple of bad choices I made and try to describe the benefits of doing them. Okay. Number 1. Don't tell the player the rules of the game. The way I did this in my game was to just explain the controls of the game, as you saw with these signs coming up, and nothing else. You never get to know what the goal is, or what you can do, or why things move around or teleport or anything. You have to find out everything by yourself. Generally, if you don't tell the rules of the game to a player, they become very confused and angry. Imagine if you buy a board game and some of the rules are missing. That's not very fun. And of course that happens in Blueberry Garden too. People just not understanding what they should do, and they turn off the game, and who can blame them? Okay, so what's the possible benefits? First one, investigation. It can actually be fun to try to find out what the rules are, and to try different things and move around and experience this rule system without actually knowing everything from the start. Also, don't underestimate surprise. That's a really good thing about computer games. You can hide the rules in the code and show them to the player at the right moment instead of them knowing everything from the start. That's something you can play a lot more with, to great effect, I think. Also, just being on your own and not being held by the hand, that's something that a lot of players long for, because many modern games help the players so much that they never get to think alone. And that's not very fun. Okay. Other games that do this, for example, are these 3 games. Of course, many more, but I think they are good examples of games that let you try to figure out things by yourself, and it's obvious that it's very fun to do that. Okay. Rule number 2 I break in Blueberry Garden. I make failure a necessity in the story of the game. This wasn't apparent from my presentation of the game, but you're actually supposed to fail the first time you play the game and die. And that's an important part of the game. When you die, the game tells you, you should maybe try again. Maybe you can make it. The obvious effect of doing this is that normally failure sucks in games. You don't want to fail. And people get sad when they fail. They feel bad. Why did I fail? I'm great. I don't want to fail. Possible benefits of this. For starters, it's a strong emotional experience to fail, to die. And especially in Blueberry Garden, it's a very drawn-out experience. You just don't die, you fight for your life, and eventually you die. That means a lot to us as humans. And also, since almost every game makes it possible to die, why not make use of it? Why just show a screen and say, start over? You can do something more with the death. Why not make something happen when you die? Okay. The third thing I did in the game was to make player choices irreversible, that you can't take them back, and there's no way you can save and go back or do anything. If you screw up, you have to start the whole game over. Okay. Effect. This is something that upsets gamers a lot, and it's easy to understand why. If you work on something in the game for a long time and then you do something wrong and everything fails and you can't even win the game anymore because of something you did. It might even be something you did in the beginning. That's not very fun. And it also leads to a feeling of being fooled by the game designer or the level designer or whoever. And that's why modern games avoid this at all costs. They try to make every choice able to take back and start over. Think about like the latest Mario game for Wii. There isn't much turnaround time after failing that you actually get back on track immediately and can start over with things. And that's good in that case. Possible benefits. Oops. Okay. For starters, it makes everything count. You have to really think about what you do in the game. And that also creates a tension in the game. Everything gets more exciting just by making things more important. And also, finally, it adds some sort of credibility to the game world, since in our world here, if we do things, we usually can't take them back. There's no undo or save function. So if you want to create a more believable world, maybe you don't want to make everything possible to take back. Okay. Other games that do this kind of thing, for example, is roguelikes, where if you die, you have to start over with a new character. You can't save, and everything you do is irreversible. The image is from Spelunky, which is kind of a roguelike, even though it's a platformer. And of course, multiplayer games usually don't have an undo function or save function. And if you think about a game like Counter-Strike and why that game is good, then this previous list is kind of a description, at least for me, why that game is good. The fact that if you die in Counter-Strike, have to wait until the match is over is very important. If you just could get in back, it wouldn't be very fun. And that also creates a lot of tension and makes the game more realistic in a sense. Okay. The fourth thing I did in the game was to add useless elements to the game. For example, the stones that you saw in the beginning, you never get any use of the stones. They're just there laying around on the ground, which might feel weird to some people, especially if you want to create an elegant game design. You think that you would take away everything not necessary, but I actually added some things that are not really there for any use. Effect, confusion. Players feel like, why is this here? They try to do something with the stones, like build a tower or put it on top of a cheese or whatever. Nothing happens. Very confusing. Possible benefits. This was something I really wanted to work on in the game, to make the world feel not shaped by human hand. In the end, it kind of does anyway, so it's a failure, but at least stones laying around on the ground with no use is something that could happen here in the real world, and it makes it feel like, well, there are some stones there. No one put them there, they are just there. It also forces the player to think. It's like a trick almost. Like you have to think, is this thing even useful in any way? And it makes you feel better when you think, when you manage to use things, possibly. I don't know. Other games does this kind of thing. Most games do. You could say that graphics in many ways are not relevant to the gameplay and so on. It might be stretching it, but of course games like The Sims have clothes and stuff with lots of patterns and different clothes. Do the Sims characters care about these clothes? Will they become more happy if they have nice clothes on? Some people probably believe so, while others doesn't. It adds confusion to the game, which is good in a way. Okay, final thing. May be the most controversial thing. Make the game really short, which my game is. And of course, that's also an effect of me being a lone developer doing everything, and also that I couldn't make the game world bigger because of the bad programming with the physics and so on. If I make it any bigger, no one can play the game. But also, I didn't really want to make it much bigger because the story in the game just needs this world to work, and I wanted it to be short and to the point. Okay, if you make a really short game, people will be very disappointed. Almost everyone who plays my game says, yeah, it was great, but it was too short. And, well, that's sad, but that's the way it is. Possible benefits. For starters, people actually finish the game, which is not the case with normal length games. And I actually like the idea of that most people will have time to finish my game, even people with work and kids and stuff like that. They might even replay it. My game, as I said before, needs to be played 2 times to be fully experienced. And think about your favorite movies and books and stuff like that. Often they are more interesting the second time you read them or see them. And with a shorter game, that's actually possible. If you have to replay Final Fantasy a couple of times to get to see everything, that might take your whole life. And also, of course, it's a more focused experience. Just take away all the crap and just keep to... I try to prove certain points with my game, and I think it proves those points. And I don't need to add more stuff into it to do that. Other game that does this, it's kind of a trend almost. Passage, very short game, takes 5 minutes to beat. Eco, not that short, maybe 5 hours, I don't know. But it's still very much just the things that need to be there. Portal, another short and good game. Okay, so a conclusion. If you break all these rules, some people will think that your work is shit, and they are sort of right. There is a reason that there are like rules about game design, because they are actually good and useful, and people don't like it when you break them. They will become angry and sad and disappointed and confused, and a lot of bad things will happen. But it still might be worth it, because as players, we are very used to these rules and the feelings we get from these rules. And if the only chance to get new feelings, like he said, the feeling with the girl and stuff like that, you can only get those new feelings if you actually break the rules. and that's why it might be worth breaking them. Okay, that was my talk. If you have questions about the game, I'm happy to answer them now.
Any questions at all? Okay, good.